Now, there's no doubt about it that by far one of the most anticipated Star Wars TV shows of 2023 is indeed the Ahsoka Tano series, as well as the Mandalorian Season 3, as both of which are going to borrow a lot of highlights and elements from Star Wars Legends by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing about the new universe is that a lot of fans have been very much excited for a lot of the changes and the retcons that George, John, and Dave are currently creating behind the scenes that's really going to be implemented in a handful of Star Wars TV shows on the horizon. Now, given that we have, of course, Andor out right now, which there's a lot of mixed reviews so far from what I've been seeing, and Tales of the Jedi is also coming out next month, so that's the real animated show I believe to look forward to. However, next year is really going to be the actual real beginning of what John and Dave are about to offer for the Star Wars fans. Now, with that being said, what's really all the more exciting has a lot to do with the fact of what's currently happening behind the scenes over at Lucasfilm in order to really regulate the Star Wars fans and to really kind of give fans what they have been waiting for the last couple of years. Now, given that there are a lot of changes coming our way for the Star Wars universe, John and Dave Filoni are making sure that a lot of these changes are going to be applied to the sequel trilogy, and how some of those changes are going to be able to adapt some of the characters to expand the bloodline of the Skywalker saga. We'll talk about that in just a second. Now, with, of course, the character of Rey getting a big change-up, we've talked about this many times, but there is more to the story that we will be diving into today, so stay tuned. Now, with that being said, given that Kathleen Kennedy is still working on the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, Disney recently has been limiting her creativity for the Acolyte since she created setbacks months ago. However, it's described that both Favreau and Filoni are currently creating a new story for Rey that will be considered a big retcon to the Star Wars sequel trilogy and how it feels and how it ends, with Ben Solo giving Rey his life force. Now, it's described that one of the big retcons that are currently in the works by both Favreau and Filoni is that they are making it that Rey will have 2 children in a post-Episode 9 era that resulted from Ben Solo exchanging his life force. This is said to have caused a pregnancy within Rey and is going to be made canon at the very end of 2023 that will be fully explained. Now, this is described to be how both Favreau and Filoni will be setting up future lore that will involve Cade Skywalker being a descendant of both Rey and Ben Solo. The Skywalker bloodline, of course, coming from Ben and not Rey, where he will also obtain the bloodline from both Kenobi and Palpatine, as Rey is going to have those 2 bloodlines in future Star Wars canon to change her character essentially. So let's just pause here quickly for a second. For those of you that are out of the loop, one of the big retcons also that Favreau and Filoni are embracing is that Rey is going to have a connection not just to Palpatine, but to also Obi-Wan Kenobi's brother and his child. So basically, Kenobi's brother had a child, that of course being Rey's mother. That's the canon lore that both Favreau and Filoni are creating right now behind the scenes. And it was actually Favreau, believe it or not, that specifically instructed Deborah Chow to drop that line of dialogue about Kenobi mentioning his brother because of this specific reason. Now, that would make Cade Skywalker a mixture of both Skywalker, Palpatine, and Kenobi, by far making him one of the most powerful Force wielders yet. And that's kind of like what they did in Star Wars Legends in a sense, in a more indirect way. They made him a combination of a Sith, a Jedi, a bounty hunter, and a smuggler, pretty much a combo of all of your fan-favorite characters in one. Though it did not really involve bloodlines like that, it involved characteristics. So that brings us to the next thing that's very important about all of this, and exactly what's really happening with the character of Rey and the big retcons that are on the horizon for, of course, the new Star Wars canon. Now, Favreau and Filoni are making sure that this is going to resonate with fans. They do realize that this may not stick very well with some fans on paper, but when they execute it in live-action form and in the books also, they want to make sure that this is really going to be rich in quality material that's going to make a lot of sense. So moving on to the next thing here, alright? Now, this is something that Favreau and Filoni got an idea from Star Wars Legends, where a similar power was used that caused a pregnancy with one of the Star Wars characters. However, that Legends story back in the day was not authorized by Lucas and left out the lore that is now being used to retell the end of Episode 9 for the Star Wars community. So right then and there you have an example of them not just using Legends, but them also using rejected Legends content back in the 1990s and the early 2000s that are now going to be used for these big changes. So Favreau and Filoni, at no surprise, are essentially making it canon that Ben Solo continued the Skywalker bloodline by using the Life Force exchange technique that is going to be fully explained in new lore that's being written by Filoni also. J.J. Abrams has already been approached by John and Dave about how they are changing the meaning of his ending and even the title of Episode 9, and J.J. is said to be perfectly fine with his alteration in the film. Now, there's a reason why J.J. has no problems with this, and we talked about this before in the past. Even J.J. believes that he did not get to explore all his creative avenues because of Kathleen Kennedy essentially capping or limiting his ability when it came to the story. And it really was unfortunate because as much as criticism that J.J. Abrams got for Episode 9, he actually wanted to reuse or at least salvage some of Colin Trevorrow's work, and Kathleen Kennedy would not let him. By the way, Colin was the original writer of Episode 9. The title at the time was going to be called Duel of the Fates, and it had nothing to do with Palpatine. It had a brand new villain called Tor Valum, who was going to be the master of both Plagueis and Sidious. There was a lot of great things that were coming out of that script, but the only thing that did worry me, I will be honest, about Colin Trevorrow is what happened with the Jurassic World films, and the ratings that they got, the fan feedback that it got. It wasn't so great at the time. And with, of course, the latest Jurassic World film, you know, maybe it was the best decision to let him out of the story, but I still think that Colin would have done a superior job than JJ. That's just my 2 cents. So here we are, you know, Favreau and Filoni creating a massive change for the character of Rey, and how it is going to lead to the fact that Ben Solo's Life Force exchange actually gave her the child of Cade Skywalker, and how that's going to be done. Now, they're not only experiencing the Skywalkers continuing on that side, but they are also giving Luke a son during the Mandoverse era that's going to eventually lead to a grandson. So they're going to have the Skywalker bloodline and the family tree evolving over time in multiple ways. That's their overall game plan right now. And we're going to be learning more about this significantly in 2023, so stay tuned. So anyways, guys, you know, I think that at the end of the day, Favreau and Filoni are thinking large. You know, these are really their side projects, you know, creating these retcons and such. But anyways, you know, let me know what you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments. You know, what do you think about this whole Life Force exchange thing and how it leads to another Skywalker? You know, let me know what you guys have to say about that below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.